crowd behind. For us, we may need to physically remove ourselves from distractions and encumbrances, or physically turn things off. As you may remember, last month I went to Brandon, Manitoba for a couple days for a provincial synod. And it was an interesting experience for a variety of reasons. But one of the things that I had not planned for was the absence of TELUS service. And so 30 minutes outside of Brandon, my cell phone was essentially rendered useless. I could not call out. I could not send and receive messages from my wife. I could not access the internet. I couldn't tweet. I couldn't get on Facebook. I couldn't do any of this stuff. I felt disconnected with the entirety of life, to the point that it felt, and all seriously, like I was going through withdrawal. It was interesting for me to notice the extent of anxiety I felt of not being able to do these things, of learning to the extent for which I am normally, unbeknownst to me, normally tethered to my cell phone or to my iPad. And, how I didn't like when those things were unavailable. Now, obviously, I still use my phone, and obviously, I still use my iPad. And I do think that those are wonderful tools for ministry and connecting with people. But for me, that time showed me that spending a focused time with Jesus means that I need to unplug every once in a while. I need to leave these in a different room, not bring them with me, and spend some time by myself in a quiet place with Jesus. We need to get ourselves to that place in order to focus ourselves on the presence of Jesus in our midst. It's about unplugging. It's about removing ourselves. It's about physical location, but it's also about attitude. It's about wanting to do this. 1 week a year isn't enough. If you're someone who spends 1 week a year at a retreat center like the FJC Center or Sorrento or one of the things, 1 week a year, it's not enough. Those times of retreats, they're great and they rejuvenate us. But what we often need is a more constant approach. Jesus frequently called the disciples away. In fact, he modeled this in his life as well. One of the things I love seeing in the Gospels is how often Jesus just gets up and kind of wanders away. He goes off to him into the forest or into kind of by himself, and the crowds around him and the disciples, they go nuts. They freak out because they can't find Jesus. But Jesus kind of removes himself. Spend some time in prayer. Our gospel reading is actually kind of two bookends, two snippets. And so we miss the middle part, which is Jesus walking on water. And one of the reasons that happened is because Jesus sends the crowds away, sends the disciples away, and spends some time alone in prayer. Spend some time shutting out all the distractions. That's what we need to do. So when is the last time that you have untethered yourself to the distractions and the demands of life for the purpose of entering into a solitary place with Jesus? Maybe you sat and you read the Bible. Maybe you sat and you listened to music. But when is the last time that you intentionally decided to focus yourself on being with him? Rest, strength of faith, even just feeling like God is with us in the thickest parts of life, it occurs here. And if you desire those things in your spiritual life, then that is the practice that we have to cultivate. William Law, who was an English priest in the 1700s, he wrote a book called The Serious Call to a Devout and Holy Life. It's thick, it's dense. I'm reading it now, and I often have to read each paragraph twice just to kind of figure out what the person's saying. But he writes this: the question is not whether gospel perfection can be fully attained. Right? It's not about doing everything perfectly and building everything up and kind of amassing for ourselves our check marks and our ticks. It's not about that. The question is not whether gospel perfection can be fully attained, but whether you can come as near it as a sincere intention and careful diligence can carry you. It's about intention, it's about attitude, it's about desiring to be with Jesus to the fullest extent that we can. Do you desire to be connected to Jesus to the point that you are restless if you aren't? And in that desire, do you pursue the actions necessary to obtain that connection? Jesus offers the invitation, but he also offers that wonderful promise. Come with me to a solitary place and get some rest. Jesus invites the disciples away with him because he is the one who bestows that needed rest. He is the one who restores that tired faith. He's the one who brings joy to the faint-hearted, healing to the broken, and fullness to the empty. So to end this morning, I believe I will give you some homework. Because taking a page from Harvard and knowing that one of the key steps to rest is to plan for it this week. In fact, plan for it, maybe Wednesday morning. It's as good of a day as any. Wednesday morning, go with Jesus to a quiet place for some rest. Sometime in that Wednesday morning routine, have that intentional desire to remove yourself from the tasks and distractions and focus on his presence with you. You can read a passage of the Bible if you wish. You can sit in silence if you're able. It doesn't have to be a long time, maybe for 5 minutes. Maybe for you, you can only muster 2. That's okay. You can sit in silence. You can read a passage of the Bible. You can put on a piece of worship music. You can come here if you wish. Everyone is different. But the key is to hear that invitation and to follow Jesus to that place. Because as he said to the disciples, he says to us here now, come with me to a solitary place and get some rest. Amen.